Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.
To Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. I am your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. Sasha, are you there? Sasha, can you hear us? Okay. I'm going to play some music here for a couple minutes while I get my guest on and my co-host on. I'll be right back. To see if this sound is working. Are you there?
No.
Okay, let's see what's going on. Hello? Are we on air? Okay. I don't know why we don't have any sounds. This is weird. I don't know if we're broadcasting. Let me try this again. I'm going to hang you up and then call again. Okay. In case you're out there listening, I'm trying to get this to work. And is the phone ringing?
No.
Okay, give it a moment. It says it's dialing. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We are having problems with Blog Talk. Here it goes. This is the late call. Pick it up.
Hello?
And wait 1 second. Give it a moment to come into the queue, and we put you on speaker. 1 second. Okay, try talking. There we go.
Aloha.
Hi, everybody. Aloha. Hi, Sasha. You there?
Yes, welcome to Technical Difficulties.
Yes. You're not, it doesn't sound very loud, but okay, just speak into the mic. I'm going to call our
something's going
special
boop,
guest.
boop.
Let's go boop, boop. I don't hear boop, boop. Okay. But I'm going to call Gordon while you're talking to our guest. Today is a very special show with Gordon James Gianninnoto, and he's going to give us the Planet X Nibiru update, and I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Sasha, talk while I call Gordon. And
Okay, so
tell everybody about Planet X. What is Planet X?
Okay, so we're going to get Gordon to just give us the latest on what's coming down. And if some of it seems a bit heavy, just remember to enjoy the presence, and this is your chance. This is the best of times and the worst of the times, and this is the time you got for yourself now, so be good. And Gordon will tell you what's coming down.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I have Gordon here. Hi. Wait 1 second. Hi, Gordon. Are you there? Hi, Gordon.
Yeah,
Can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can. Yeah, it was a little faint.
Okay,
I don't know why.
We were having technical difficulties, but we figured it out. We got it to work. And welcome to the show. This is our Planet X Nibiru Earth Changes update. And Gordon is going to tell us the latest and greatest on what's going on. You've been doing a lot of research into this. You dedicated a lot of your life to this, right, Gordon?
Yeah, I'd say pretty much almost every spare moment in the last 9 years, and hours and hours and hours every week for my whole lifetime before that.
Right, and in the womb and everything. You've been preparing for this time all your existence. So give our
Well, yeah, I tell you, you know what fascinates me is this thing about the animals moving, the mammals and the penguins going to where they're sensing the earth changes way before the scientists put it together, at least the public scientists. I love this stuff that you come up with, Gordon.
Yeah, well, it's nice talking to you, Sasha, and as always, I'm delighted to be on a show with you, even though, what is this, a special presentation or something?
Yes, we're doing a special Planet X Nibiru update. There's so much going on, listeners, that we just thought we'll probably have to do this at least once a week, Gordon, just do like an update, because Gordon called me the other day and was just telling me all this information. Oh, and I wanted to get Wendy on this show. I need you to meet Wendy. But my life got crazy. So we have the earth changes going on, and then all of a sudden, in the midst of all this, my personal life, it has these swings where it gets kind of crazy, and I'm putting out fires, and then calms down, and we come here and we broadcast to keep our listeners clued into what's going on. So this is a special broadcast.
Okay, well, what happened was about 3.5 weeks ago, some people sent me some links to this conspiracy theory, and there were a lot of YouTube videos about the conspiracy theory that involved Operation Jade Helm, and of course, Jade is refers to the Chinese, I think. So, and Helm, that's like the bridge of a ship where they pilot the ship from. So, it was, that by itself made it sort of curious. And the conspiracy theory, as I got off the internet, was that, and which I think was a bunch of crap. But anyway, the original, what I heard the first time originally was that the U.S. Congress had voted to send arms to the Chechen rebels and arms to the Georgian rebels and arms to the Ukrainian rebels, and in return, the Ukraine, Chechnya, and Georgia had decided to arm the insurgents in the United States. Well, that made me laugh because what insurgents, you know? And the Congress, if they can pass all the resolutions they want, which I never heard of those resolutions, but they can pass all the resolutions they want, but that, unless it's voted in as a bill and signed by the president, it's just a lot of talk. So I didn't really take it seriously, but yet the part about Operation Jade Helm is that the Special Forces troops of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps are being deployed across 11 western states from July 15th to September 15th. So that sounded pretty true because I know that we spent $100 million on an urban warfare center in Virginia, which is a duplicate of a small town / city where the Army can train for urban warfare. And you can tell that we've armed the National Weather Service, the IRS, the Social Security, and the U.S. Post Office with hollow point bullets, which violates the Geneva Convention, and they bought all these 40 caliber pistols to train the agents of the federal government. So obviously the federal government's expecting something, so the fact they would have urban warfare is not surprising either, you know? So,
my phone's dead.
Yeah,
we
so
can't hear you, Janet.
No, I can't
Okay,
hear
are
Janet.
Wait, hold on.
Try
I
again,
muted.
Janet.
I muted because I was sneezing. I didn't want to sneeze in your ears. Are they? Part of my question is, are they expecting it or creating it? Because a lot of this propaganda creates the drama and the expectation of all this crisis, and then they have an excuse to put us in FEMA camps. I mean, that's one of the theories out there. What is real? What is contrived? And that's what we're sort of on this show. What's really happening? What's contrived? I thought I'm going to ask Nancy Leader, and then if she accepts that as a question, she can ask the Zetas, and the Zetas will say what's really going on from their point of view. Now, I'm talking about unselfish human Zetas who are the little grays. And as I've said before, in every extraterrestrial group, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and she's in contact with the unselfish ones. So I figured it'd be great to have their viewpoint. So I asked her if she would take that as a question. She goes, I've heard a lot about that, but I haven't taken it as a question, and I'm not going to. So I thought, okay, fine, you know, because what usually happens is that I mention something to her, and she says no, and then a couple of days or a week or 3 weeks later, she decides to take it up as a question. So. Well, she considers what you have to say, but she doesn't want to.
Yeah. So the very next day after I asked her, President Obama issued an executive order to institute sanctions against cyber hacking and different cyber terrorism and cyber thievery and God knows what all. And that was a hard to understand executive order because we already have laws against breaking into the Sony headquarters and stealing their movies or whatever else might happen. Originally the people who did it, which were hackers in the United States, with the help of unselfish ETs, because the Council of Worlds has said that it's going to be war until the president can announce pole shift in Planet X. Not that he would announce pole shift, but he would announce Planet X. So then the hackers encoded the hacking by making it seem that it came from North Korea. Well, that's a joke because North Korea isn't bright enough to do that. And finally, after weeks of being accused of doing it, North Korea threw up their hands and said, well, let's admit to doing it. That way everyone will think we do have power that we don't have. So that's what they did. They came out and said, yeah, we're the ones that hacked into Sony. So that's what I thought that was about. So Nancy calls me the next day, and she said, I took Obama's executive order and Operation Jade Helm as one question, and the Zetas answered it. And so I was really interested to hear what they had to say. And, of course, there is that question of insurgents because the Chinese have parked enough military materials to outfit an entire Chinese army in Mexico just across the border from the United States. So what do they plan to do with that? And then ISIS terrorists have been discovered working with the drug cartels. So even the Mexican government can't touch them, and the United States can't exactly cross the border with Mexico and bomb the cartels and bomb the ISIS training camp. So there is that background threat, but there's definitely, there's no question about whether there are Mexican insurgents who want to take back the United States. I mean, Mexicans come to the United States because of the benefits. Mexico has no benefits. So all the Mexicans that go to California to be taken care of, if Mexico got California back, there'd be no benefits in California for Mexicans. So, it's like
right.
It's like you have to dismiss the conspiracy part of it for the insurgents. So, but anyway, Nancy said, and this was posted on poleshift.ning.com, which is where she takes and answers questions, and then it was posted on zetatalk.com, and there's a newsletter section, and it's going to be the subject of a newsletter, a weekly newsletter. They come out every weekend, and they're numbered, and you go to the newsletter section, and it lists the newsletter and the topics. So you can look for that, and then send the link to people if you wish. So she said that the executive order was aimed at post-announcement activity. And what the president has been wanting to do is announce the presence of Planet X. Now, they're not going to say this is going to cause geographic pole shift. This is going to cause a disaster and a calamity in the United States and the rest of the world. They're not going to say that at all. What they're going to say is there's a rogue planet in between the sun and the earth, we off to the side, and we wanted to tell you, but Ronald Reagan made it top secret. But because we love you dearly, we went out of our way to make it so it's not top secret anymore. So we can tell you there's a rogue planet in between the Earth and the Sun, and that would be Planet X, or also known as Nibiru. So what in the hell does that have to do with the post-announcement? Well, what happened is the media was against announcing it because they've been stirring up these white policemen shooting blacks because they want the National Guard called out to guard the wealthy people's estates, to guard their businesses, to guard their banks and their vaults of gold. And Obama has said he's never going to do that. So the Council of World said, you're going to let Obama make the announcement, and the media was against that because they're owned by the elite and the powerful, and they want everyone to keep their nose to the grindstone until the last minute. So they were against, and they were sabotaging Obama's move. But now, evidently, they're not against the announcement. But what they're planning to do is twist the news after the announcement. So because this is an executive order about digital information, if a news station like Fox News or NBC decides to twist the news so Obama makes an announcement, but they explain it to have a different meaning, then Obama would be able to come in and say, okay, that's it, I'm shutting down Fox News and I'm shutting down NBC. So that was interesting that's what that executive order, because everyone I spoke to that couldn't figure out why did he issue an order about taking sanctions about digital information. Even TV stations and radio stations are all digital now, so that covers just about every form of communication. But it also covers people who are against the government. They could write an email and then they could be arrested or seized or stopped or blocked or whatever. So, but she said that what's happening is that the United States Geological Survey has notified the U.S. government that the northern tip of South America is about to start rotating west. Well, as it rotates west, it's going to crush Central America, and it's going to detach the southern end of the Caribbean plate, which is going to cause all the south end of the Caribbean plate to submerge, which will sink all the Caribbean islands. At the same time, the nudge from South America moving west, which eventually it's going to move 400 miles west. Now, it's trying to do that, but it can't do that until a huge crack opens up in eastern Brazil, because the southern end of South America is firmly attached to the Antarctic plate. So if the top end, the north end of South America, is going to rotate 400 miles west into the Pacific, it has to have a crack open in eastern Brazil. And that's actually what's starting, and there's a lot of evidence that that's what's happening. There's a spreading there, a splitting of the eastern coast of Brazil. So
how big is it?
Yes?
Say that again,
Okay.
please, honey.
How big
Josh,
is the
what did
crack?
you ask?
Well,
How
the
big
crack
is
is
the
going
crack?
to go. The crack is going to go all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to the Andes.
Wow.
Okay, but not at the widest point of Brazil, but a narrower point. You know, now down in the Argentina area, the Brazil border with Argentina. So when that starts happening, that's going to push Mexico, the southern end of Mexico, west a little bit. And that's going to create a bow, a big curve from Alaska to San Diego to Mexico. And San Diego is going to be the center of the bow where the compression occurs. But east of San Diego, it's going to open up fissures and cracks, because in order for Mexico to move, southern Mexico to move out into the Pacific a little bit, it's going to have to be a split somewhere, and the split's going to be from Southern California into the Four Corners section of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, Colorado. That's called the Four Corners. So anyway, the European Space Agency recently sent up a satellite that's got a spectroscope on it, and they went around taking pictures of methane molecules around the world. And they discovered that the whole east coast of the United States is blue, and agricultural land is green, which means there's some methane from agricultural activity. But there's two super gigantic plumes, which nobody can see, but they're like volcanoes, gigantic plumes of methane coming up from the Salton Sea, which is in California, I think it's the Imperial Valley. I might be wrong, but I think it's the Imperial Valley. And, of all places, the exact corner of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico, called the Four Corners. Now, it makes sense that there's methane there because there are huge coal-burning electric plants parked at the Four Corners. It's just desert, but there's gigantic seams of coal. There's so much coal that they've been grinding it up and sending it in a water pipeline to Los Angeles to feed the coal plants in Los Angeles. So there's a lot of coal there. So, of course, it makes sense there would be a lot of methane. But until the satellite took these pictures, nobody knew that there were huge, they're almost like erupting volcanoes, huge plumes of methane streaming up into the atmosphere. And the United States Geological Service took that as a sign that all these earth changes are imminent, because that's on the crack that would go east of San Diego. And so
what are the Four Corners again, Gordon?
The Four Corners are the southeast corner of Utah, the southwest corner of Colorado, the northeast corner of Arizona, and the northwest corner of New Mexico. And that's known by everyone, especially Native Americans, as the Four Corners. And
you said it was the Salton Sea, or what was the name of the sea?
The
California.
Salton Sea is in California. It's a huge.
How you
it's
spell
a huge.
that?
It's a huge lake.
Yeah, how do you spell Salton Sea? Is it like S-U-L-T-O-N? Oh, salt, like Salton. Okay, Salton Sea. I'm going to look this up.
S-A-L-T-O-N.
Okay, I'm going to look this up here, yeah.
So
that's what, honey?
That's a lake that's been drained for agricultural use.
It's where the Korea used to live.
Okay.
And it's got a causeway diagonally through the middle of it that keeps the salt water from mixing with the fresh water. And but the whole thing's drying up because they're pumping it dry. And the salts came from all the water being used for irrigation. It keeps getting recycled, and it picks up salt from the ground. And eventually, as it evaporates, in the hot sun of Southern California, it leaves behind salt. And so the Salton Sea is becoming saltier. It's a gigantic lake, but there's a causeway that divides the salty part from the fresher part, but the fresher part's not that much fresher. So it's reached a point where if you put water from the Salton Sea on your crops, you're probably killing your crops.
Wow. Okay, well, I'm trying to pull up some, there are some articles out there. High concentration of methane gas in four corners attracts attention of scientists. So I'm pulling up some articles. I Googled it. And there's a bunch of stuff going on. I invite the readers to take a look for themselves.
Exactly. So what the U.S. Geological Survey, and you see all these big volcanoes in Chile are going off now. One of the 10 biggest in South America just erupted, massive eruption. And there's been volcanoes going off, big ones in Costa Rica, in Ecuador, and so the earth changes are about to begin. And so what's going to happen is when South America moves west and the southern end of the Caribbean Sea is no longer supported by the South American plate and drops deeper into the earth, all the Caribbean islands will start flooding. And everyone who has a boat, which of course everyone in the Caribbean has a boat, not everyone but lots, they're all going to get in their boats and are going to head for the United States. As the northern tip of South America moves west and crushes Central America, which will also be erupting with volcanoes, those people are going to head north. And South America, people are going to head north. And I said, well, people said, how are people from South America going to get to the United States? And I said, well, I think South America has like 12,000 miles of ocean shoreline, so you know there's plenty of boats and ships in South America. So they're going to head to the United States. And then with Mexico being shaken and all the adobe structures collapsing, people in Mexico are going to head to the United States. So the Zetas said that Operation Jade Helm is not to start martial law or to create a problem, but instead to resolve a problem, because when the Caribbean starts sinking, it's going to trigger the New Madrid Fault. And the New Madrid Fault is going to put salt water as far north as Memphis, Tennessee. From South Carolina to Texas is all going to be under salt water. So first they're going to have large quakes. Now the quake of 1811 rang church bells in Boston, and the Mississippi and the Ohio rivers where they meet in the New Madrid area, that ran backwards for 3 days. But back in those days, in 1811, there were only log cabins there. But then as the South grew up, they built all these brick buildings. Yes, there are steel skyscrapers in the cities, but most people live in wood and brick buildings, which would totally collapse with the first 8 and 9 and 10 earthquakes. Wow. And then as the Gulf Coast is drawn down with the Caribbean Sea, the salt water would intrude, and between 30 and 50 million homeless people will have nowhere to go except north or northwest or west. Now, Operation Jade Helm is putting Special Forces troops into Wyoming, Colorado, California, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, and Florida. So you can imagine that if everyone in Florida has to leave, that nobody in Tennessee is going to be happy to see them move to Tennessee, nor are they going to be happy to see them move to North Carolina. So
well,
there's
how many
going to be a lot of
there are going to be a lot of deaths from all this. I mean, how many people are going to die and what? So.
Yeah, there could be 20 million people die. Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of bodies.
Yeah, but that's going to trigger the San Andreas Fault. So you can just imagine what's going to happen then. And now the scientists just announced recently that they figured out that if the San Andreas goes, the Hayward Fault will go also. And, of course, all these faults are linked together. So if one of them goes, all the rest of them are going to go. Eventually, California is going to be known as the California Islands because the salt water is going to intrude right to the continental divide.
And when do you anticipate this is going to start?
Well, that's the thing, is the Zetas say that the placement of the troops is because that's the time period from July 15th to September 15th that the U.S. Geological Survey figures this is going to happen. So I asked Nancy, is this like a row of dominoes? First, South America moves west, then within hours, the Caribbean sinks, then within hours, the New Madrid erupts and starts sinking, and then within hours, the San Andreas. And she said, I can't tell you. And I know she's being truthful because she's not very good at keeping secrets, and if she knew, she'd probably tell me one way or another, directly or indirectly. So she doesn't know. But the thing is that all of this is linked. So there's no separating out one part of it and saying, well, that's all that's going to happen. And
you know, Gordon, I was talking to Bob Farrell, and he's saying what makes the suddenness happen is when glaciers themselves go plunko, and this isn't a gradual thing. So that's what makes the huge waves, is when the glaciers themselves hit the water all of a sudden, and they're huge.
Right, because ice above on land that goes into the ocean raises the level of the ocean, but ice that's in water and melts actually makes the water level go down, because ice, when water freezes, it takes up more room than it did when it was water. So you know, if you've ever had a cold drink in the summer and you have ice cubes in it, after all the ice melts, you notice the level of the drink has gone down, and but when huge sheets of ice, but this is not pole shift. This is the Earth changes in the lead up to pole shift. So people have said, well, what we're worried about with Project Jade Helm is that the Chinese and the Arabs would invade the United States. But the announcement of Planet X is going to be a joint announcement with President Xi of China, President Putin of Russia, and President Obama are jointly going to announce this Planet X. But they're not going to say exactly what it's going to cause, but they're going to jointly announce it. China has its own problems with Southeast Asia. Parts of Indonesia are already 80 feet deep under salt water. Parts of the capital city of Jakarta are 80 feet deeper than they were 2 years ago. And the government of Indonesia keeps telling the people, oh, this is global warming, this is sea rise, this is monsoon rains. But it's not. It's salt water, and it's permanent. So at the same time, the Arabs, certain Arabs, would love to invade the United States and destroy us. However, the Atlantic Ocean is about to get wider, and the Pacific is about to get narrower. In order for the Atlantic to go wider, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is going to widen. That's going to push South America west into the Pacific, and it's going to push Africa east into the Arab nations. So the Arab nations are going to be one big heap of rubble, because as Africa disconnects from the Mediterranean plate, the Mediterranean will no longer have any support, and it will start sinking, and that will start the southern coast of Europe will start sinking in the same way that the Gulf Coast of the United States will be sinking. And as that's happening, Africa will be moving to the east, and it will absolutely crush Iraq and Iran and Egypt, and just make a mess of it. So if you really think about it, the Arabs are not going to be able to come and invade us. The Chinese are not going to be able to come and invade us, and because Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, and the southeastern part of China, including Hong Kong and Macau, all those places are going to start going underwater. So the Chinese have their own problems, and the Russians don't want people from Europe. As Europe floods, they do not want people crossing Russia, because all of Russia is going to be underwater except two places, the Ural Mountains and the Siberian Plateau. And Russia is already moving its whole headquarters and all of its agencies to Siberia and building new naval bases and military bases in Siberia. So they seized the Crimea, and they're putting their army on the border with the Ukraine to keep Europeans, when Europe starts sinking, to keep Europeans from migrating through southern Russia to get to Siberia. So they each have their own issues. But in the United States, you can figure that this is going to be happening soon, and that you're going to have those three events: the Caribbean sinking, then that's going to trigger the New Madrid Fault and the sinking of the south coast of the United States on the Gulf, and it's going to trigger the New Madrid Fault. Now, the San Andreas Fault. Now, on May 29th, there's a big blockbuster movie coming out called San Andreas, and I've looked at a couple trailers for it, and it's just as awesome and scary as that movie that was done in 2012. It was called 2012.
Right.
And it showed Los Angeles tilting upward and sliding under the Pacific. The San Andreas movie shows basically the same thing. And its timing is perfect, May 29th, just in time to scare people. But as I've said before, you should go to Zeta Talk, and there's a safe areas section. It's right at the top. You go there and you look the future of where you live. If it's not good, you've got to move. You know, you could talk about, well, I'll move after I retire and I'll take my 401k with me. Well, what do you think this is going to do to the economy around the world, too? So if the United States is in ruins, then what's left?
It'll be total if this happens, it'll be just total chaos everywhere. And what about the underground facilities? Are they going to be immune to this? You know, the oceans run above.
Oh, no, they're all going to be crushed. That's why the government is realizing the tunnels are of no use.
Yeah, they've spent how many trillions of dollars building them for the last 60 years, and so where will the Illuminati go?
Colorado and Kokomo, Indiana, and the Ozarks.
So that's prime real estate. People start buying it up. All right, so the when is important, because if everybody's caught off guard, wherever they are, they're going to die. You know, it's not going to be that much running if you're just. If you watch the 2012 movie, there were very few people that survived.
Well, what the Zetas said is that Operation Jade Helm officially goes on from July 15th to September 15th. And I have a friend in Phoenix who's seen ads in the paper. They want actors to play terrorists in urban warfare scenarios, and they're paying them $14 an hour.
Cool. Well, I'm looking at some of these Earth Changes maps. I really invite people to go and Google, do the research yourself. And
there's wonderful maps on ZetaTalk.com of the Earth after pole shift and during pole shift, yeah.
Right. Well, it looks like a lot of it's underwater that was above. So isn't there lands rise as well as fall?
Well, the climate's going to change, so people are going to move to these areas where you wouldn't normally want to homestead now, but will be wonderful places to homestead later.
Right.
Like Utah.
This map is Utah. Well, it looks like
now,
through these maps, a lot of South America's gone, a lot of Africa's gone, and Europe and Asia. It seems like more land is underwater than above. So wouldn't there be some kind of displacement where land would rise while others fall?
Well, what's happen is we have 7 continents on Earth, and we're going to have 8. A huge continent, much bigger than Australia, is going to rise in the center of the Atlantic Ocean in between South America and Africa, and that's going to displace huge amounts of water.
Right, because that's apparently what's happened in the past. So
yeah, and that's why the English government is reestablishing its base in the Falklands. The minute that breaks the surface, England's going to go and claim it for the British government.
but while this is all happening, it's going to be unstable everywhere, right? The waters are going to be slurping around.
Well, we're not talking about water and big tidal waves yet. We're not talking about pole shift yet. We're talking about the lead up to pole shift.
All right. So this is just the lead up to pole shift. As far as you know, are there any plans for getting off planet? What's going on with the space, with the space?
All the billionaires have plans, and the Council of Worlds has said nobody gets to cut this class. Everybody has to stay here. Any attempts to leave the Earth, the spaceship will be blown up.
So could they already be leaving? It seems like
They'll
that
be leaving
kind
now.
of they're leaving now before it happens. If they're already out there, are they safe? Like, apparently there's Mars and Moon colonies, and there are probably colonies all over the space that we're unaware of.
Only very, very few humans, almost none. So it's not worth even bothering thinking about. But what's important is that the Zetas said that everybody knows about Project Jade Helm, but they don't know about the closing of the Walmarts, and they don't know about the secret undercover work. Operation Jade Helm has an undercover element that's been going on for months, and Special Forces troops have moved into those 11 states and moved into neighborhoods and rented apartments, and they've been going to bars and talking to people and meetings and finding out who's against what and where the skinheads are and where the Aryan supremacists are and where the patriot militias are and how heavily armed they are. Because when all these people start coming across our southern border, the southern states are going to want to cut off the border, and the federal government is going to use those special forces troops and their inside information to thwart every attempt to close the border, because this is the end of the world, and those people will be allowed to come into this country because they will be survivors. They will be the best of the best, and we're allowing them to come in. And so there was a special forces soldier gave a town hall meeting in Phoenix, and a lot of people went and said, why aren't you announcing this better? Because, old people are going to look out their window and they're going to see SWAT teams coming down the sides of buildings with ropes and then having shootouts with terrorists on the street, and you say it's just an exercise, but all the old people are going to look at it and have a heart attack.
Right. And
they said, well, we could have done a better job of announcing it, but we've been doing this for years in South Carolina. Well, who knew? But, South Carolina is one big swamp, so that's going to be one of the first places to be underwater. So, and Georgia will be underwater. Florida will be underwater. Where are all those people going to go, and how fast are they going to realize what's happening and get out of there?
Most of them probably not fast enough. They're just going to be dead.
So all of a sudden it was announced that...
They're planning on mass death of, a large portion of the population will die, be it the first phase or the second phase. You're going to have a lot of people dying.
Yeah, well, if they don't move,
that ain't going to survive this.
I said, find out where's a safe area, put your family in the car, and go visit there next weekend and see if you like that area, if the people like you, and if so, try and plan to move there ASAP.
Right. Well, that's
difficult
for most people because they're all economically challenged. So people just move without a job or something. So that's
one Walmart has closed in California, one Walmart has closed in Arizona, one in New Mexico, one in Oklahoma, and one in Texas. And they were suddenly closed. I saw a news story on CBS where an employee was saying an hour ago we were given 2 hours to get our stuff out of the store. We were given 2 months severance pay, and we were told the store is being closed for 6 months until October 15th. And so I thought, well, that's odd. Then I found out that one of the stores had just opened last week. Then I found out they're saying it's a plumbing problem. So I have a friend who knows some contractors who have built Walmart supercenters. The average supercenter has 250,000 square feet of space. And the contractor said he was told that the fire alarm contractor cut corners, and the fire alarms have to be redone before the fire marshal closes them immediately once the fire marshals find out. However, that doesn't make sense either, because you could fix the fire alarm system a little bit every night until a week went by and it'd all be fixed. So they marked down the frozen food 50%, and they packed everything else up on pallets and took it away. So Nancy accepted a question from the Zetas over what that was all about. And they said that FEMA made a secret contract with Walmart to rent those stores for the same amount of money that Walmart would have made had they remained open. So Walmart is not losing a penny. Now they're going to make the same amount of money. They're actually going to make more because they won't have any employees and they won't have to stock any shelves, and there'll be nothing for sale in these stores. So I was thinking, well, you could put people in there, but then I realized if you even tried to fit 20,000 people into the average Walmart supercenter, within 2 hours they'd all end up trying to kill each other. But it's a great location because it has a 150-foot-long deli line, and you could slide a tray along and you could select what you want to eat, and they would give it to you, and then they could put tables in there and everybody could sit down. So what it is FEMA has made a secret contract to rent these Walmart stores, renewable until October 15th, and they may claim other Walmart stores. They've only taken 5, but they may claim others, and they probably are. So those are going to be FEMA centers, and one of the most valuable things about the FEMA centers is that it's going to have room for trucks in the parking lot with other supplies, because you're going to need those Special Forces troops to keep people from raping, looting, rioting, burning, going nuts, robbing. Once you realize that your whole downtown with all its jewelry stores is going to be underwater, people are going to be breaking in and stealing the gold and the diamonds. So people are going to be angry that they weren't told or they weren't warned of it, and that's why they're arming all the government agencies. But I have no idea why they're arming them with hollow point bullets, which are definitely against the Geneva Convention, but that's what they're doing. Billions of rounds of ammo have been purchased by the U.S. government. In 2011, the federal government ordered all the manufacturers of freeze-dried meals to fill government orders. And tractor trailers right to the horizon were lined up at Denver Airport and at Kokomo, Indiana, to go into the tunnel system where all this food could be put away for the future for the carry-on government. So they're not shy about ordering whatever they want, and when they order it, you have to comply, or else that's it for you. So the bridges are going to come down. The roads are going to be closed. There's going to be choke points, and if you can't prove that you have somewhere to go, you might not be allowed to leave. You might be forced to stay with the rubble and the disaster of what's left. And so that's what these special forces. So in this town hall, somebody asked the special forces guy, is NATO or the UN involved? And he stammered so much that everyone who was there got the impression that, of course, NATO and the UN is involved. But my friend who's in Phoenix buys and sells things. He goes to flea markets and tag sales, and he buys things, and then he resells them on eBay and on Craigslist. And in the last few months, he's noticed a fleet of white box trucks with no markings that he's never seen before going through Phoenix heading south. He said the interstate is full of these white box trucks, and they give him the heebie-jeebies, but he doesn't know why. We don't know if it's FEMA pre-positioning barbed wire on the border, or whether it's bullets going south, or whether it's cots and tents and food and water. We don't know what it is. But then I talked to Colonel Don Ware, and he told me there's a federal prison in Texas. I think it's called Ballstrup, Texas. I do not know how to spell that, but he said if you go on Google Earth, you will see that there's over 1 million brand new vehicles parked around this prison. They're all white. And he goes, a lot of them are SUVs and vans. And people, even though they've screened it off from the interstate, you can drive by and stop and see, and you can look through the fencing. And people who have done that said that the front and rear passenger sections have security screens dividing them. In other words, they intend to pick people up and put them in these vans and hold them, to maybe, hopefully at best, to keep them from causing trouble, but who knows. And so anyway, the state of Texas is the most likely to want to secede from the United States. And the governor and the legislature could vote to secede from the United States. Well, all the prepositioned special forces troops would immediately come in and arrest the governor and the legislature and seize the government and not allow it to secede. So there's a lot going on, and I thought it was important to update people and give you this information. So what do you think of it all together?
Oh, wow. Sash, feedback.
Oh, yeah, it's we're in for some exciting times. My advice is to seize this moment to just know that just as these large scale disasters can kill us, or we can get run over by a car or get a heart attack the next moment. Live as though each moment is your last, because it's the last chance you have to live this moment. And it's a good day to live, and it's also a good day to die. So be yourself, because this is your only chance to do it in this particular Earth walk.
Well, like I say, if you're only going to live 5 more minutes, try and make sure it's helping somebody else right into your last.
Well, I'm a contact the experiencer, and I'm in contact with the extraterrestrial species, and they don't really speak to like in languages, so they give concepts, and the concept that they've been conveying to me is that this is a potential, and that thoughts are deeds, and if we focus on a reality where we come through unharmed, unscathed, then we can actually co-create that. And so that's my perspective is
my perspective is that the world is in a big my perspective is the world is in a big mess, and to clean it up is going to need a really big broom. But I've already said on one previous show with you that if everyone would follow the golden rule, then there would be no need for this, and the benevolent ETs would change everything. But what's happening is that so many selfish people think if they're given any chance to continue being selfish, they're going to take it. And that's why something this big has to happen.
Well, and so it is preventable. And if people were really to take this show and spread it around and, start changing their lives in this very moment and start living from unselfishness, giving more than receiving. You can still receive. In fact, if you don't receive, you don't give other people the chance to give. So you can take turns being giver and receiver. But we need to stop being so selfish as a species. This is kind of like the analogy of the Bible, where we get punished. If the ETs could prevent this if we're unselfish, then we won't get punished. So we need to stop being a selfish species and start thinking of other people and start giving.
I'd really like to say it depends about this idea of selfish. It depends upon which fish are you selfing, and if you can include in your definition of yourself other people, other creatures, and you just keep expanding who you think you are and not limiting it to your skin-encapsulated self-sense, then the fish that you are is the whole thing, so to speak. And so it's okay to be selfish if you are identifying with the whole thing, perhaps.
Right.
Exactly. And the thing is that the most of the people that haven't made a decision are not about to suddenly wake up. We could hope they would wake up tonight, tomorrow, but it's probably not going to happen. But so in response, the unselfish ETs have already identified all the unselfish people on Earth, and they are now in the process of offering each unselfish person a lift. I guess you could call it, if you're Christian, you could call it a rapture, a lift in the final time, in the final moments, to come back either to where they were or to join with the unselfish ETs in a fourth dimensional invisible city, which will become visible when the Earth becomes fourth dimensional.
So there's so this brings up a lot of things that I've been told. So you're saying these are invisible? That reminds me of the Manas. They were invisible. The floating cities, they were invisible, and then they were visible. And that was one of the
well, it's like we're third dimensional now. This is a third dimensional planet, but there are fourth dimensional things on this Earth, and there are over 7 billion extraterrestrials here who are fourth dimensional. And they could be walking through your house right now, and you wouldn't know it because you can't see them. But they're here. And when the Earth becomes fourth dimensional, all of a sudden all the third dimensional stuff will fade, and the fourth dimensional, it's like retuning your radio receiver. You're tuning to a new frequency. And on that frequency, there's a lot of people waiting to welcome us.
Right. Well, I've been able to see ghosts all my life, and it's just a matter of tuning into the frequency, and they can see me seeing them, and so it's a big circle here. So the same will happen with the extraterrestrials and interdimensionals, who there are many who love us and are here to support us. So if we can just take this opportunity, we've listened to all this, Earth changes, doom and gloom, and yada, 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 but if we can just individually, in this moment now, listen to the show, whether it's live or later on, in the archives, just take a moment and commit to being, shifting to an unselfish type of reality where you give more than you receive, when you start considering the apparent other in your self, in your sense of self, and become aware of other people. Feel them, become conscious, and don't buy the labels that you've been given, that you're, I don't know, whatever, this whole, last 50, 100 years, people are getting labeled as bipolar, ADHD, narcissistic, sociopathic. Just shake off, because you're a soul first before you're any kind of label of mental illness or disability. So just shake that off and become who you really are as an eternal being, and embrace your brothers and sisters and family and friends, and really start loving them totally, completely, and unconditionally. That's what I get.
Right, and the thing is that there are already people who have made a conscious choice to be unselfish, and they're living that life every day. They realize that the rest of the world is them, and they are it. And when you're kind to everyone else, you're being kind to yourself. And when you mistreat someone else, you're mistreating yourself as a soul. So, but these people do not deserve to have to go through this tribulation and die from it, and they're being offered. Now, Colonel Don Ware told me about an author of a book, and Janet and I looked it up, and it's pretty interesting. And it's this guy who's 77 years old now, but his name is John Foster, and he's from Lincoln, Nebraska. And when he was in the 6th grade in 1949, benevolent ETs beamed up John Foster and several of his classmates and trained them to operate an orphanage in Lincoln, Nebraska after pole shift. And they said that they will bring the orphans to them, and they will run an orphanage to save these children who do not have parents and to raise them. Now that's interesting, because the pole shift is the ripping of the St. Lawrence Seaway really wide, letting salt water into the Great Lakes, running down from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. So the whole eastern half, the mountainous areas of the eastern half of the country, will be separate, just the way New Zealand is separate from Australia. And then the northern end of Mississippi will rip horizontally over to Omaha, Nebraska. And Edgar Cayce, in one of his predictions about pole shift, said that it would start from the period from 68 to 98. Well, I guess there are all kinds of, events are in the hands of man, so it hasn't started yet, but it's pretty close. And he said that the greatest seaport, 100 years, in the year 2100, the greatest seaport in North America would be Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow.
Right, and isn't there something going on already where they have some kind of there was somebody else that said they have a Navy base in Nebraska or something. They already have it or something.
Oh, there's rumors. There's
that,
rumors
yeah.
of an underwater tunnel from California that goes to Utah, where they have a naval submarine training base, which doesn't make sense because it's in this lake out in the desert, and it's like, how could you have a submarine training base? But the Navy owns that lake, and you can't get anywhere near it. And supposedly there's a tunnel where submarines can come in off the Pacific and go into this tunnel and end up in this lake. So it's very interesting.
Wow, fascinating. So
now I want to tell you.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to tell you, if you have the time, about 2 years ago, Janet had a vivid dream. It wasn't a dream. She was transported to the future, and she and I were standing there. Now, I don't remember anything. For all I know, it was just another night where I didn't dream, or I didn't have a dream I could remember. But in her vision, she was standing with her back to the ocean, and there was a curve in the railroad tracks to her left. And the tracks came along the ocean and then turned northward to get away from the ocean, right where she was standing. And the government had requisitioned huge railroad trains, miles long, with flatbeds on it, and they had requisitioned all kinds of heavy equipment, everything that could move the earth or debris. Backhoes, front loaders, graders, bulldozers, excavators of every size and shape were all chained down to these railroad cars. And she remembers being told, because she asked somebody, what's that? And they said, well, the government has seized all this equipment, and they're rushing it to the southwest as fast as possible. And the southwest of us, being here in Maine, would be the New Madrid Fault. And that seems like a likely scenario, that when everything collapses and it's all debris, that there would be a sudden need for excavators, backhoes, front loaders, anything with a front-loading bucket would be useful in an area like that. And as she's standing there, the weight of the train separated the railroad tracks, and all of a sudden the locomotive and all the railroad cars, because the weight was just so incredible, it just separated the tracks right on the curve. The lead locomotive went into the ocean, and every single railroad car with every single piece of equipment followed it into the ocean and was ruined forever, and just a pile of debris under salt water. And she was standing right there as these trains went off the track. And afterwards, she found me, and I was okay, and we had both witnessed this. This was in her vision, but it was so real that she cringes at even the thought of hearing the steel against steel whining and crunching as the cars, one after the other, all connected, went into the ocean. So I took that as meaning that the New Madrid Fault is going to go off and the government's going to seize all this equipment. Because I have a friend in Boulder, Colorado, when they had a big flood there about a year and a half ago or a year ago, I said, well, and the roads were all cut off. I said, well, doesn't everybody have a tractor or a backhoe or an excavator? Why don't these people all go out and fix the roads themselves? After all, I used to have a backhoe, but now I have a tractor with a backhoe. And if the road was cut off, I'd go fix it myself. I wouldn't wait for somebody to rescue me. He said that in Boulder, Colorado, it's really funny. Everybody has a little ranchette, and nobody has heavy equipment. Whereas if you were to fly over Maine and look down, you would see just about 1 in 3 houses has a backhoe, an excavator, a bulldozer, whatever, all this heavy equipment, that because people are do-it-yourself, and they know how to use this stuff. And so it makes sense the government would come to New England to seize all this equipment and then send it to the disaster zone.
Wow. So your equipment is going to get seized, people. But interesting. What about the earth changes? We alluded to this is just phase one.
Right. This is just a warm up. The Zetas have said that with the shifting of the plates, I mean, when pole shift occurs, there will be a sloshing of over 600 feet walls of water surging into all the coastlines of the world. But she said that randomly before that, there can be 200 to 300 foot tidal waves anywhere on the coast, anywhere in the world. And so that should make you think twice next time you go down to the beach or you go down to town and it's near the ocean, that right then might be the time when there's a 200 or 300 foot tidal wave coming in. So probably today and next week is safe, but I guess you could say that all bets are off for this summer, and by this fall, it will probably be a completely different world than we thought it would be. Probably Obama would cancel the next presidential election and declare martial law for the whole country, and National Guards would be called out at all areas to stop rioting and looting. And I think it depends on how he puts it. If he puts it, this is something that none of us can control, that it occurs every 3,657 years when Planet X comes through the solar system, and if we all work together, we can help each other survive this and come back sooner than later. So I think it's going to be very important how he words this and what the attitude is of the troops, because if they're just going to go in and start killing people, then it probably would end up being civil war.
Well, the troops have families too. I mean, it seems bizarre that the troops would just go in.
Well, it does seem bizarre, except if you remember a few years ago, about 5 years ago, all these police chiefs across the country suddenly resigned, and that's because in secret meetings, everyone was told, "Would you be willing to shoot your neighbors?" And the people who said no, they were told to get out of law enforcement now. And those who said, "Sure, I don't mind. I don't care who they are. If I'm told to shoot them, I'll shoot them," those people were promoted.
Okay. So when is this pole shift approximately going to occur? Any ideas?
Well, I don't know at all, except that Janet had a dream that when the 600-foot tidal surge comes in, it was pushing ice flows. Now, what's interesting is the Zetas have said when everyone looks up at the sun and can see Planet X separate from the sun, right now it's lost in the glare of the sun because it's at the 4 o'clock position next to the sun. So it looks like a caterpillar on the side of the sun, and you can't look at it with your eyes because you'll be blinded. It will burn your retina. But if you take a picture of the sun and you see a glowing caterpillar on the lower right-hand corner of the sun, that's Planet X. It's not next to the sun. It's actually next to the Earth. It's like 65 million miles from the sun, and it's 35 million miles from Earth. But when you can look up and see Planet X separate from the sun, mark your calendars, because then you have 49 days until pole shift. The Zetas have already said that. They've also said that it will occur either in August, which are magnetic trimesters, which I have no understanding of why that's important, but it will either occur in August, December, or April. And Janet's vision of the first tidal waves coming in pushing ice means that the pole shift would be in April. And if all this stuff happens this summer, then I would bet that the pole shift would be in April of 2016.
Well, you clearly are saying the solstices and the equinoxes.
No, I'm not. I'm saying magnetic trimesters, which I personally do not understand and cannot explain to you. But the Zetas said there are 3 magnetic trimesters, one every 4 months. They occur in August, December, and April. And the pole shift will occur on one of those.
I got you.
Well, in August, from what I understand of the Philadelphia experiment, is that the birons of the planet align on August 12th. It was 1943. So every 20 years they're in perfect alignment, but every August they go in some kind of alignment. So go from August in all directions. So you've got the trimesters. It has something to do with the rhythm on the planet itself, the biorhythms.
Well, the Zetas have said that the Earth stopped in its orbit because Planet X gravity pushes, and when Planet X came around going clockwise and the Earth was going counterclockwise, they both stopped in their orbit facing each other. And so they've also said that after the pole shift, which will only take 1 hour, after the pole shift, it will all of a sudden pick up again as being August. So the people who are expecting a winter, right after pole shift, there'll be such disaster and death and destruction. But then people who are in the new cold climates are going to have to get ready for winter.
Right after, so winter will come off season, then you're saying?
So I'm saying I don't know when pole shift will be, whether it will be August, December, or April, but Janet's vision was that the first waves coming in on the tidal surge, the 600-foot tidal waves, were pushing ice flows. So there's no ice in August. The ice is just beginning to form in December, and in April it's just breaking up. So, but I don't know. You see, originally the Zetas were going to announce to the world the date of pole shift. If there was an open microphone and it was carried on all news media, but then they decided against it because selfish people like Dick Cheney and George Bush would put poisons in their chemtrail planes and go spray everybody to kill all the useless eaters, knowing that with pole shift about to happen that no one would ever catch them and convict them.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, is there anything we can do? Because we really don't know where to go. And if you did have a place to go, how do you get there? It takes money to travel. It takes money to get a new home. It takes money. So we're still in this money system. And
well, yes, but now
right.
you
in particular, huh?
You in particular live at a very good elevation in Maui, correct?
We're only 700 feet up with all the sloshing. I'm sure it'll come up our way. We have a stream that goes through our property, so waters go up the stream beds, and so if it's rushing in, it'll probably come rushing right up the mountain to a degree, and there's nowhere to run.
What I'm thinking, see, my mountain is only 535 feet, but Maine is supposed to pop up 500 feet at pole shift. So that would be 1,035 feet. And then if a 600-foot tidal wave brings in all these boats and everything that floats, but a lot of boats and all kinds of stuff that floats, propane tanks and fuel tanks, they're all going to wash up on my south field. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life just going around with a tractor, picking through the debris and finding parts of buildings that I can salvage and pull apart and then re-nail into a new house, fuel tanks, boats.
Well, you're going to find a lot of bodies, too. A lot of bodies, yeah.
Well, we're just going to have a group of people recover as many as possible and burn them, I guess. I mean, I don't know what else to do.
The stench would be unbelievable. I don't know if you've ever smelled a rotting body, but it's like, oh, my. I mean, there'd be millions. So, okay, so what can we do? We talked about this earlier, to get the good ETs to come down and do something so we don't have this reality. Because we have evidence from different glyphs and things that are carved in stone that they have these abilities to move us out of harm's way. We have A.R. Borden, who told in the Linkage Institute meetings that they have ways of moving us out of harm's way. But you're saying from the data information that we need to...
There's no doubt that the extraterrestrials, the benevolent ETs, can do unbelievable things that to us would seem like a miracle or not even possible. They can do it in a flash of a hand, a wink of an eye. But they're not saying exactly what they're going to do or who they're going to do it with. So all I can say is, even if you can't move, try and be as unselfish and as loving and as kind as you can, not with the thought of saving yourself, but the thought of becoming a good person and learning something about the meaning of life and demonstrating it for others to see. That could be your plan for the rest of your life.
Well, so you're saying that you can't really ask for another day to say, I mean, I've heard people say they pray to God or Source or whatever, and they say, please give me another day, and I promise I will, do thy bidding or do good deeds. So that's not an appropriate prayer or request to ask for another day so that you might be able to improve yourself and change your life around?
I'm sure your husband would agree. The proof is in the pudding. You can sit and think, oh, I'm a really good person and I'm going to be good for the rest of my life, but then somebody comes to your house and causes a problem and you take out a gun and shoot them. So in real life, you proved you didn't learn a damn thing. So the question is not what you think, but what you do. So that's why I always put it this way. You've got to organize all your intentions and all your behavior towards being unselfish. So it isn't enough just to ask for help because you think you've been good. Well, maybe you haven't been as good as you should be, It's like that song, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Have you been naughty or nice? He's checking his list twice.
From my perspective, you never get another day. Whether you pray for it or not, the only day you have is this day. And so this is when you manifest, do it, or take responsibility for not doing it, but the choice is yours. Right now, this is your day.
Right, and Janet had a vision that she was with a whole group of people, most of whom were her relatives, and they realized that they were in an unsafe location and the tidal surge was going to come in and kill them all, and they stood in a circle and held hands, and they each told each other that they loved each other. And if that's all you can do, then do that.
Right. Oh, is that Janet? Hi,
yeah,
Janet.
She added that in that dream that the sky opened and light came down and shone right on the group that were holding hands. So I would think that a group like that, the ETs would come and take them all up all together and say, that's it, you had the right answer.
Oh, that sounds like a good ending. Janet, do you want to come on and say anything before we end the show here?
Yeah, I want to say something.
Come closer to the mic.
I spent the weekend, a night with my grandson.
2 days.
2 days, for 2 days. And I got home last night. And last night when I was with him, the night before when I was with him, it was a clear dream of ETs were in the room. I think he kept waking up, so I'm sure he sensed it. But they told me that he was definitely a star child. And it was really cool. It was like they were around us all night in his bedroom.
Aw.
Well, you have fun with ETs almost every night, don't you?
Yeah, and he's beginning to talk about them, and he loves them, and, it's fun.
He's a 3-year-old kid, and when she mentions portals and stargates and ETs, he understands that completely, whereas if you have to explain something more normal for a 3-year-old, he takes quite a while to understand it. But when you start talking about advanced concepts like planets and starships, he knows that instantly.
He loves fairies.
All right, we're going to wrap up this show. How do we want to end this? We covered a lot of ground. Listeners, I'm going to creating a page for this show with all the top topics. We covered Jade Helm, Walmart.
I would say
closed.
Pay attention. Don't put your head back in the sand and presume everything's going to stay the way it was, because it's not.
Okay. Sasha, any final words?
I think it's really interesting to imagine that there's this bubble that represents this dimension, and all the regular gravitons, 3D reality is on the surface of this, and that you can step inside this bubble of light gravitons to where the heavy gravitons are and take you to a source so you can contact the best part of yourself and then bring that back and share that with the people in your life.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you. Well, I invite you to spread the word, listeners, and help the planet wake up and become aware that there are earth changes happening in our worlds on the microcosmic level and on the macrocosmic levels, that there are kind and loving ETs out there waiting to get your messages and to communicate with you. Janet Stanley, Gordon's beloved, is in communication with her extraterrestrial friends all the time. I am as well. There are, I heard the stats, there's something like 20 million contactee experiencers, and people are starting to wake up and are no longer afraid to speak about it. So if you are a contactee experiencer, please do contact us, and we'll put you on our show if you can, if you're willing to talk about it. And Gordon, I love your reports. Let's do this on a regular basis.
Thank you. And my full name is Gordon James Gianninnoto, and I have a radio show on Revolution Radio every Friday night at midnight for 2 hours, midnight Eastern time, on Studio A at freedomslips.com. And people can listen to me each week, and I update this as I get more information. I update it. So, welcome to listen.
Well, hopefully we can avert this disaster by our group mind coming together as a planet and praying or meditating or whatever it takes to open up the reality to this new reality where we can all live out our lives in love and peace with grace, dignity, and beauty. With that, I think that's our final words. And thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, listeners. And much love and blessings and aloha to everybody. Let me find some outro music. Oh, here we go. Love and blessings. Aloha.
Aloha.
Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.